Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the Power of 8 at 8. I want to bring in Eileen here. How are you doing, Eileen?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, except for computers crashing and things like that, but we're here.
I know, you guys getting tired of hearing this yet, but we both crashed right as we were going on. I crashed first, and then Shane caught it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's contagious. You actually had to switch PCs, so.
I did. I got my old one out, so I must look much younger now because it's all fuzzy. See? Can't see any wrinkles.
That's a trick that you see is smear a little bit of Vaseline on the camera. Yeah, you knew that trick?
No, but it just came to me as you were doing that. I was thinking Vaseline would do the trick.
Yeah, that's what they did, and it would give that dreamy look. And
oh my gosh! Okay, I don't even have Vaseline in the house, so there you go. I can't do that. I can use some lip gloss.
You're using digital Vaseline.
Digital, that's right. Old camera, old Toshiba, nice and fuzzy.
We're in the digital era, so now we have the option of using that kind of stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Mercury retrograde, like you said, plus all these electromagnetic storms are quite high this weekend. I have seen solar reports that we're going to have aurora borealis all the way down to the level of Chicago across the United States. That's pretty low.
That's mind-blowing because I've lived in St. Louis, which isn't that much lower. It is quite a bit south, but we never had anything anywhere near.
I wonder if you'll get it. You should go out and see, like midnight, 1 a.m. if you're up, see if there's any aurora borealis.
I'm in Tulsa now, so.
Oh, of course.
That's that much further south, so it's like no fun for us. But yeah, I would love to see that. And so if anybody's in the Chicago area or even Biker Babe up in Michigan should be.
Yeah, that line. What's that line called? That latitude? Yeah. Latitude or longitude?
You got me.
I think it's latitude. Know.
Yeah,
and I think the long goes the long way. So let's just say that latitude.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat will tell us. They'll tell us like right now in a second.
I'm surprised you said longitude because don't they say longitude in Europe or no?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do. And sometimes I mess up a lot of my spellings and my words still.
That's awesome though.
The weirdest one is aluminium. Hello, all you aluminium fans out there. It's just such a funny way to say it. It's awfully cute.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it took me, I guess I was probably a teenager before I figured out they were the same thing.
Aluminum. And my friends, when I lived in England and we shared a house, we were housemates in London because it was so expensive. They used to have me say pillow. And I'd be like, why do you want me to say the word pillow? And they'd go, pillow, pillow. And they go, come on, Eileen, say pillow. And they just made it sound so funny. That was like their favorite word for me to say.
That's so funny you said that because I was thinking when I had Magenta Pixie on, I'm like, man, if she can do an English accent or an American accent, I can do an English one. We can have a whole funny show of us trying to imitate each other's accent or something.
Can you do one? Can you put on an English accent? Like if you're an actor, were you an actor as well as a singer-songwriter?
No, not really. I did go on campuses with cameras when I was a teenager and onto the Oral Roberts University campus, and we'd do all sorts of different things and interview people and pretend like we were from the BBC.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, I wish I still had some of those videos because you guys would absolutely love watching that because we just had a blast. People,
Oh, I wish you did have one.
And yeah, but it was back in the old VHS, the camcorders you had to sit on your shoulder days.
Yeah, big heavy ones. Like when there was Beta was out, and I remember I did radio, but my TV friends had Beta cams on their shoulders. Yeah. And I think they got rid of Beta. They said Beta was better technology for viewing and editing, but VHS was smaller and lighter, right? Is that why they did VHS?
I don't know. I never went the Beta route because by the time we were going to get one, we heard that Beta was going to be obsolete and that we should stick with VHS and it would fit our VCRs. And so, yeah, I remember the Beta days though.
I
And they
got
were
really
right.
mad when they brought CDs out. I was like, I had drawers full of cassettes, and I'm like, why get rid of a good thing? Like, sliced bread is good. You don't have to change it up.
Yeah.
Cassettes are good. Why change them up? But then I do get it that like after 20, 30 years, they disintegrate, right?
Yeah. And it's the same thing with, the 8-track, that
Oh, that's what I bought this for. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see this, or can I only see it?
I can see a little bit. Let me see if the viewers can see it.
I got that on Amazon. This is not an Amazon ad. You guys know I don't like Amazon, but I'm kind of stuck using them a
It
bit.
plays 8-tracks?
No, it plays it plays records, it plays cassettes, and it plays CDs. And you can go from cassettes and records and tape onto CDs. You can record onto CDs. So I still have a drawer full of cassettes, and I'm whipping them out now from 1980 onwards, and hoping that they'll play so I can put some of them onto a CD. And that, I think, was like $250. I thought that was kind of a bargain to be able to record all your cassettes onto CDs.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
I
a
lost
bargain.
mine. I had
Yeah.
a big milk crate full of them at one point, but I think they were in the garage and dried out. And
I gave
they
them
all
to my
sounded horrible.
sister and
Yeah.
brother-in-law. He's a musician, and their kids. I had like inherited all of the Beatles from my older brother and sister, Herman's Hermits, Procol Harum. I was like 12 years old, and my favorite song was Whiter Shade of Pale, because I had all these old records. And then my records were like Donny Osmond, the Partridge Family, the Jackson 5.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are good old days. Yeah, I remember my parents having one of those carousel things with 8-tracks in it, and
Yeah,
figuring
mine
out, because it was
too.
just at the time when they were, sort of phasing out of it and getting into cassettes. That was the new
Yeah.
thing. But I remember sort of figuring out the way it worked and how you could jump between 4 songs at any one point or something like that. And I was like, wow. Or was it 2 songs? Was it 4
It
songs?
was a
It was 4
lot.
songs.
It was pretty good. We had one in the car, and I remember singing along to the Karen Carpenter
Yeah.
songs, And believe it or not, by the time I got into broadcasting professionally in 1985 in Chicago for National Public Radio, so they're no slouches. They should have some pretty good equipment, although they did tend to pay low wages and do everything on the cheap. I don't know why. I guess because they're considered like public TV, but they're not.
Right.
And they had entire walls full of 8-tracks. And on the 8
Really?
tracks were 30-second sound bites, 40-second sound bites, 60-minute sound bites. So they would go in, and the engineer would bang in an 8-track. This is 1985 to 1990. And they would record little snippets of the weather, the news, a celebrity saying hello, and then stick it on the wall with some tape on it. And it would be, some celebrity saying, give money to this radio station. And they'd bang it in, and it would play for 30 seconds. So they never even got away from 8-tracks until they went digital, which was after 1990, because I left in 1990. And we were we had reel-to-reels with tape. And we were talking about that, you and I, off camera one night. And we would move that tape back and forth and cut it with a razor blade and tape it back together and take out whole chunks of people talking. And that's how I did all my editing at NPR in Chicago from 85 to 1990, was with a razor blade. And I would do my own editing because I actually knew what I wanted cut, but I would do all my recording with a sound engineer. But then I'd get my interview uploaded, and I would do all my own cutting. It was kind of cool. Very, very old fashioned.
Yeah. Now, by the time, I guess it was around, the turn of the millennium. I guess it was like right around 99 or 2000 when I was doing my solo thing, and I was supposed to go into the radio station for an interview for like a local homegrown music type show. And I'm listening to the radio and waiting for the guy to come up in the door. And of course he shows up, and I hear him talking, and I'm like, why is he showing up at the door? And I hear him talking. I knew there was a delay, but how could he get all the way to the door real fast? And he comes out, he starts smoking with me real fast, and he's like, and I'm like, and he goes, oh, don't worry about it. It's all automated and stuff. So we're like walking through the radio station in the middle of the night. It's like midnight, and it's got the radio station playing no matter where you are, and you hear it, and then we go into the sound booth, and I get in there, and I'm really surprised because it's like all these monitors, probably like 3 monitors. and then a soundboard, of course, and a couple of mice for the computers. And then on the wall, he has like the CD rack that's just about like what you would see in your home. And I was expecting to see lots of music, you know.
Do you think those were CDs? Did he use
Yeah,
CDs?
they were CDs, and I'm like, that's all the music.
Because we were still on 8 tracks in Chicago up to 1990.
Well, this would be about a decade after that.
A decade later.
And a decade later, I'm asking him, that's all the CDs? He goes, yeah, those are just for emergency purposes. Everything is streamed in it now, and
all digital,
all automated. And then he showed me the screen, and it had the song, and then it would show the commercial that was going to fit next. And he basically was just babysitting it. You know what I mean?
See, I would have no idea how to broadcast on radio for the digital age, because I left in 1990 to cover the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I didn't come back until 2012. But when I got to Germany in 1990 and worked for their national broadcast network, you couldn't touch anything. There was no editing tape with razor blades and splicing it together. They had everything automated with sound engineers. Sound engineers did everything, but I still don't think they were digital in 1990. That seems a bit early.
Right. Yeah, I guess probably the 90s is when things really took off with the digital stuff, because the internet really came out online real big, and it was reliable at that point, I guess. But like I said, they just had like some of the top music. It was a top, you know, I guess top 40 station. So really,
it was all handed to them on a platter, a computer plate, right?
Yeah.
You know, when we did interviews 85 to 90 in Chicago, we used alligator clips. Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
They look like alligators. They're little metal things, and we would unscrew phones, public phones, and we'd put it into our little Walkman. It was a professional Walkman, so it was really heavy. And then we'd stick the alligator clips onto certain wires, and we'd transmute what was in our Walkman via the phone lines into the studio.
Wow.
And then we put it back together. We put the phone back together.
Roach
Isn't
clips.
that crazy?
Right.
That's what you guys call roach clips. They're alligator clips. They're for like... They had a purpose, you know?
Yeah, because they would sell those feathers that you could clip onto your mirror in the car back in like the 80s or whatever. And my mom would always break the alligator clip. She said, we don't want them thinking we're using it as a roach clip. And, you know, if you get pulled over or something.
They had an electronic purpose, though. They were created to transmute information like down a phone line. It was crazy.
That's funny. How
the dinosaur days, guys. The olden days. I'm from the olden days, 1985.
Yeah, most of us grew up in those homes where you had those kitchen phones that hang on the wall with that cord that hangs to the floor, and you had to, you know, maneuver around whoever's on the phone because they'd be walking all over the house with a stretched cord.
Yeah, see, we started out with like a 6-foot cord, and within a year it was a 20-foot cord. It got stretched so many times to different rooms.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. And even to think, you know, that kids don't know what a rotary, they'd look at a rotary phone and go, what do you do? They wouldn't know to stick their fingers in the holes. Put your finger there and pull. And if you didn't pull all the way to the end, you didn't get connected, did you?
No. Nope. You had to pull it all the way to get
you had to get all the way to the end. I actually have a phone. I don't have it in this room, that I got from my dad. I picked it out of a box from like the 1920s. It's a real one. Doesn't work though. I'm sure it could be like rewired somehow. No, I don't know.
Can you use rotary phones anymore?
It doesn't have a rotary. All it has is a stand and a little duck thing and a thing. Hello, operator. Give me Shane in Oklahoma, please. I'll just wait.
Now, we had one of those on the kitchen wall. It was just like when you watch Lassie or something, you know, and it's got the thing you turn like this.
No.
And what you really did to it, though, you walked up to it and you opened it and pulled the real phone out.
Oh, that's too funny. That is just so funny. No, see, my dad worked for the phone company before he worked for Amoco, which was, well, with Standard Oil. Yeah, my dad was employed by Rockefeller. I hate to say that, but he was a good guy. He wasn't one of the baddies. And he used to be a lineman. He used to climb like that Glenn Campbell song. I'm a lineman for the county. I used to love that song. And he used to climb telephone poles and fix telephone lines. And he came home when from Illinois Bell with a box of telephones, and I picked the oldest one I could find in there, which didn't have any dials at all. You just click, click, click with your finger.
Man.
And Myrtle answers on the other end and knows you by name and goes, hello, Eileen. Who do you want me to connect you with tonight?
Yeah, because we talked about the party line thing before. We had a phone line that was connected to the neighbors, and that's just wild.
I'll bet you those people were just listening in to people talking all the time just for fun.
Yeah.
Because they could, they could just
And
go,
what
oh,
about
hi.
your dad? Did he have one of those phones that hung on his waist with the little alligator clips where he could dial a
He
number from the
didn't,
line? And
because he got hired up. He never went to college even, but he was at some technical high school, Tulane or something like that, one of the big ones in Chicago, and he got hired by Standard Oil to set up their phones in Trinidad and places like that, and they were just starting to think of satellite telephone technology. And then they sent him to Liberia and Sierra Leone in the 80s and the 90s. And they were setting up with a company, somebody named Campbell, with a company in San Francisco. And my dad and this guy, Campbell, produced the first fiber optics.
oh wow.
And they did it for Amoco. So it was like Standard Oil. Amoco got the first technologies before they went public. They would be used and developed for the oil companies and obviously for the military industrial complex, right?
Yeah.
But I remember working in the Amoco offices in 1990, and my dad popped into the Houston offices and he said, turn on your computer. And I did. And he goes, push this button. And I did. And he goes, I'm going to send you a message, but listen for it, because when the message comes to you, it's going to beep on my end. I'm like, okay. And he sent me a message, and it was like 3 seconds later, beep. And my computer, which was that black screen, MS-DOS, with little green or little orange, little computery words.
Yeah.
You have a message. So my dad sent me one of the first emails from Houston to London. And that was like 1990. So I can't imagine we had a lot of emails before that. But weirdly, I looked up, my dad had nothing to do with inventing emails, but I looked up who did, and it was this guy in America. And now it's being credited to CERN. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
That's really weird to me.
CERN didn't have to do with inventing emails.
Right. That's strange.
It's very strange.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of weird things going, like where people are trying to take credit for it. I mean, even who was didn't somebody say Gore invented the internet at some point?
He definitely was not mentioned when I looked it up back in the 90s.
It seems like at some point I'm like,
but
Al Gore?
now who knows?
Oh,
I mean, they could.
Oh, okay.
It could be anybody. They could say Disney invented the internet, because it's all nonsense. Whatever they say is pretty nonsensical.
Yeah. But the most recent one I heard was somebody at CERN had developed something for them to use, and they thought, hey, I got this idea that can, be used all over the world maybe, and now we have our internet, and it's like, I don't know.
It's like history is skewed, and it's constantly skewed, and maybe it's not just happening now. Maybe it's always been that way, but we just went along with it. We're just like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
If they told us CERN invented the internet, we'd be going, oh yeah, guys, did you know CERN invented the internet? And instead, we're aware and we're awake, and we go, hey, hang on a minute, that doesn't sound right. We think about it first. We just don't repeat it.
Yeah. Yeah, military, I'm sure, was using it way before it ever came to the public or whatever. Somebody's mentioned in military. Yeah. I think it was 96 that we finally got. We had a 386 computer and a 486 computer, which the 486 was really nice.
I had a 386 in 97 in England. That's when I got my first internet, was 97. But my dad was sending me an email in 1990. They made it available. The military made it available to the oil companies, of course, because that's part and parcel of their business.
Right.
Is oil and gas and other things that I won't mention, or we'll get heavily stricken.
But yeah, we had to do the dial-up thing that would take forever. It sounded like a fax machine, and then we were on the internet so much that no one could ever get through, because it was before cell phones, right? Or before they were big and everybody had one. So then we got a second line. But then we found that with both computers, my wife and I could both be in the chat room, act like we didn't know each other, and just have fun with it and stuff. You know what I mean? But really, we were sitting next to each other.
You want to go on a date tonight? Yeah, meet you in the chat room. Hey, Hazel, how are you? I'm great. John, how are you? You guys pretending to be other people in the chat rooms is kind of funny. Yeah. Actually, that's very good if you go in and spy on your children who were in the early chat rooms and see what they were getting up to.
Yeah, and the big thing was to chat or to send they had little sound files that would be like something from a movie or a character's, it could be anything you can think of, a funny line. I don't know. I can't even think of anything that was going around back then. Something from maybe Star Wars or something. And people would share all these files or pictures and things like that. And it would take forever to get like a little sound bite. You know, it seemed ridiculous now.
Oh,
but
for
it
it
was
to
just
download.
fun. Yeah, to send it from somebody. And
Yes.
it was so cool that
It
you were
would
getting
take
it from someone
forever.
from England or from.
And you'd leave the computer and check it every 10 minutes to see if your download was complete. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember those days?
Yeah. And then, God forbid, you drop your call or you know your connection. You have to reconnect. And
Do you remember trying to upload a page and it would take a minute or two for the page that you wanted to go to online to actually download onto your computer?
oh yeah,
You just kind of sit there reading a book, you
Yeah.
know, whistling a tune, waiting a minute or two for a site to open
and it's
up.
because it had a picture on the page.
Usually because of a picture. Oh my God. And when they started adding videos, I just wouldn't go to those sites. I'm like, I'm not going to wait 5 minutes for you to download a video on your homepage, you know?
Well, if you think about it, I started when it was 14.4K download speeds, and then we went up to 28, and it seemed so much faster. And then we went to the 56K
32.
modem.
I remember it being 32 and 64.
The 56K modem was really like we were so happy we got that. We're like, isn't that so fast?
It's
And then
so
after that,
fast.
yeah, then we went to after that DSL, and
Well,
it
I
was
don't know
neat,
if I
yeah.
really want us to have little chips in our brains that give us instant communication. Like you just do this, you think, and you click into a channel, and now I can be talking to people on unbiased and on the fence. I think people who are older don't want all the new technologies, but maybe the new kids today do want that. Maybe they just want to blink into a channel or, you know,
yeah.
call their friend, you know.
That's funny because my son just saw somebody that had this robotic arm. They had gotten their arm cut off, you know, and they had this robotic replacement arm, and they looked like Iron Man or something. He goes, wow, look how cool that is, you know. And I'm like, nothing's going to compare to a real arm,
No.
son. You know what I mean?
No, cool as long as it's on somebody else and you're looking at it like it's a cartoon. Not if
Right.
it's on the end of your arm. Poor Kai. But I bet he really appreciated it. Whoever got that arm must have been really
Oh,
happy
definitely.
to do stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, where I kind of agree with the wing makers, where it's like we're at this crossroads where we can do things naturally, like telepathic abilities coming online, or you can take the technological route where you're trying to do it through chips in the brain and things like that. And I think, you know, that's what we have to
We
deal
can
with.
bypass all that and go straight into telepathy. Our community knows that we don't need a human-made gadget to do this stuff. We can do
Yeah.
it. We can do it with our own consciousness
Totally. Yeah.
and just skip the technology. We're allowed to say anything we want on our channel here, right? On your channel. I'm a guest, but you know, I act like it's mine on Saturday nights.
Right.
We can say what we like. I've been watching somebody new to me. You guys might know him. I think it's Brian. Is it Stavely? Have you guys heard of him? I'm probably murdering his last name.
Sounds familiar.
He's like from Massachusetts, yeah. And he's got that Richie from Boston accent, but he's smart. And he's Mandela affected. So he's putting out all these live chat, fairly long Mandela effect chats. And somebody got me onto him this week. Oh, it was Moneybags. Because Moneybags said, hey, this guy who has a smaller channel just did a Mandela effect debate. And I was listening in on the debate, and he did a really good job. He really represented the community well. It was very hard to get past him with all those usual, oh, you're just not remembering it right, or, oh yeah, they mess it up online and then you think it's that way, so you don't know how it really is. And he really got around all those arguments. And then at the end of it, he said, oh, by the way, I'm going to be on Richie from Boston later in the week. And I was like, crikey, you know that Richie's going to throw demons and Satan at this guy, like boom, 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 CERN, demons, Satan, D-Wave, right? So I got all excited and got my coffee, and I guess he did the interview yesterday or the day before, and I put it on, and I was ready for that debate. And do you know they chit-chatted like loverly brothers about the Mandela effect, and never once, I'm not really criticizing, but never once in 2 hours did they address the elephant in the room. What do you think is causing this? They chatted for 2 hours about Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, Star Wars, Ed McMahon, just really got on great, which is wonderful. I want peace and love and all that. But I was waiting for, what do you think caused it, Brian? I don't know. What do you think caused it? RFB, Richie? Because Brian comes from like where we're at, that this is a natural evolution of human consciousness, and that we're just now starting to see how consciousness governs matter. So that's basically his point, which is our point. We're pretty much, there's very few people.
That was Brian or Richie's point?
That was Brian's. And of course, Richie's all about the demons and Satan and the aliens and CERN and he's always got portals opening up with entities coming in and messing with our matter.
So I'm wondering about, so I'm trying to think, has Richie even talked about the Mandela effect, or does he just avoid it? Or?
Yeah, no, he skates around it and talks mostly about CERN, but he was talking a lot about the Mandela effect. So
he sees it.
Yeah, he sees it, but he thinks that CERN has blown portals into other dimensions, and that entities, which are demonic, which we used to call aliens, are messing all this up. They're just messing with us. They're changing our Bible. They're changing our geography. They're changing the human body. But these two guys were so nicey, which is great, because I was thinking afterwards, that Brian must be a genius, because on your first visit to somebody's house, when you're getting your cup of tea and your little doily, do you go, by the way, do you believe in God? You don't. You save it for later. You get in the door, you make nice, you come back. And then Richie from Boston has got such a huge following. If Brian picks up even a 10th of them, and they start listening to him saying, this is quantum consciousness, this is the evolution of the mind over matter. What a brilliant way to go in softly and do your work. And I'm not saying he planned it that way. So I hope he's not listening to this show tonight, because he's going to get mad at me on both ways. But I am an admirer of him. I really like his show, and I like the way his brain works. He's very quick, and he's very smart. And if you've got somebody who sees the Mandela effect, who's like that, you can put them up against anybody and just stand behind them and listen. Let them defend it.
That's so true, yeah. And I was just thinking about the fact that, with Richie from Boston, I used to watch him so much, and I found that, I just tended to watch him less and less and less. Just like other people that seem to go negative so many times, and you just, if that's the route they want to go, that's cool with them or whatever. But it just, it's like, kind of like Bashar in the one channeling when they were talking about the trails in the sky. He says, if you stay stuck there, you're sort of becoming their greatest advertisers. You know what I mean? So I think they're serving an important purpose. Actually
build it. You might be feeding
exactly
what you needed to keep
which
it
is
going.
Actually what Quantum of Consciousness was talking about on that video that blew up. It's like, are we really doing the work for them? And I thought, even though that video blew up, it doesn't mean, I don't think it definitely means that, Google was pushing it. I think sometimes we have help that pushes a message out when it's a good message. So I don't think that's like, just the slam dunk that it's definitely Google pushing.
And then, like you said, a picture of Brad Pitt from the vampire days does not hurt. Stick a picture of Brad Pitt with his hair down to here, and everybody's going to go, what's Brad doing with his hair down to here? Click.
Right. And then in the corner, that was residue. Did you see?
Yes, I did.
In the corner of the picture? Yeah. It's that interview with the
awesome.
vampire.
Yeah, I like the guy's show, and he's going to get big. And I think it's good, because would Richie from Boston have you on or me on? Heck no. We're too lovey-dovey for those kind of conversations or channels.
Positive. Maybe if you heard my son, Zeke, he does a great Richie from Boston. What's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. And he's like 12, so he like...
I know.
It's so funny to hear.
Get really mad. We could have him take off Richie and have you take off Shane, and we could have you do a debate on whether demons and CERN are behind the Mandela effect, or God's behind it through the mechanism of human consciousness. That would be an awesome debate, but I think we might get in a little trouble if we tried to pull that one off.
If we got his attention, he might come on for a real debate. Who knows?
Oh my God. Should we go and ask him?
Nah, he's serving his important purpose. Everybody's on their journey. I don't worry about it. I'm not a debater.
No, I have done debate. I don't like it though, because if I win, I feel bad, and if I lose, I feel bad. There's no point with me debating, because either way I lose. Seriously, if I win a debate and I try really, really hard, I really feel bad for the other person that lost.
Yeah.
So
I totally feel
I
it.
don't want to go there.
So that's the whole thing with trying to convince people and stuff like that. I say just, sprinkle them with a little truth and plant those little seeds, and someone else comes along and waters them, and then it's like, before long, they don't even realize it started with the little seed you planted. So, and
Yes.
if they're ready for it to take root, it will. If they're not, then they don't feel like you've, badgered them about it or whatever.
You haven't
They'll get
upset
it.
them about it. You know who said that recently? You probably haven't seen it, was David Wilcock when he did his questions and answers, I think, because he got hit hard. He got knocked off of live streaming. Some copyright strike, I think. I don't know. He's not happy about it, but, he's starting his Ascension Portal class. And he said, you know what, guys? You know a heck of a lot more than maybe your friends and family do. Instead of running to them and bashing them over the head with the Mandela effect, he didn't even say Mandela effect, but this information. He said, just feed it to them gently with a spoon. And every day, give them a little bit more. And before you know it, they'll be on board. They'll understand it. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Little, slowly, slowly, softly, softly.
Yeah. And that's sort of the route I've taken with, even, my wife is a great example because, I could tell it was freaking her out a little bit with like JFK and all that, but then she'd pull back from it and everything. So I just kind of left her alone about it and would ask her one every now and then and see what she thought. But for the first time, she came to me the other day, and I'll ask you guys because I haven't seen this out there. Maybe it's been covered, but Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down
your hair.
Okay, that's how you remember it too. That's how I remembered it. She said she remembered it, and everybody in the house except for her remembered it as let down your hair. She says, I remember let down your golden hair. And I'm like, what? I've never heard that. So I looked it up and I put, let down your, and sure enough, it says let down your hair. But then it also the second choice was let down your golden hair.
So it's a dual memory. We have another dual memory there.
And then she is not alone, even though everyone in the household, I'm like, how does it feel now being the only one that remembers something one way?
Wow. You know what? You know how you were saying you felt that this was timelines merging rather than timelines splitting?
Right. Or it's really like consciousness. I mean, I think the timeline thing is a good way of looking at it.
But we're here. All the timelines are here.
Yeah.
But it's only two. We're not. Okay, let's think of an onion. And one layer of the onion is it's all here. The onion is here, and you're in the middle of it. And the first layer you see, it was Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. No, it was Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair. And then the next layer of the onion, you're still in the same place, is Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair.
Now, we got two that remember
golden.
Mel and Rita both remember golden hair.
Wow.
So yeah, I know she's not alone with it.
One person's seeing one layer of the dimensions or timelines, and maybe somebody's seeing two layers of the dimension or timelines, plural. But I'll tell you what, it's not multiple timelines getting squished here, because then we would all have a slightly different memory of Rapunzel. Maybe we'd have 5 versions or 10 versions of it, not 2. Every time you get stuck in a Mandela effect, you usually have 2 versions instead of 3, 4, 5, right?
But we've seen multiple changes too. So like if you think of, okay,
the Thinker statue.
Yeah, and the Mona Lisa is a great one. But you don't have anybody that's like, I remember always having the hairnet, and it seems like it's the beginning version you remember, and then the current version. It seems like.
But then a lot of people like Cynthia Sue Larson will get rid of timelines completely, and they'll say, imagine a holographic orange. You're in there, and all these other versions are in there too, if enough people bring them into matter, bring them down into the material, collapse the wave function.
Exactly. That's how I view it. I think the timeline thing it's helpful in some instances,
but it's not real.
It can actually kind of throw you off on, because you start thinking of things linearly, and it's just not that way, I don't think,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Sort of like you're getting off of one train and into the other one, and when I think of it like that, then it doesn't make sense with the softball girls all posing wrong next to the statue, because that train would have had them always mimicking it properly in my mind,
Yeah, so timelines don't work, but they're easier to communicate. It's still an easy concept to use. But, when people say, I don't believe in a simulation, I don't believe in a holographic universe, I don't believe in the multiverse, which is multi-dimensions, because I believe in God, there are some arguments like that. And I'm like, well, why couldn't God make a simulation? Why couldn't God make a multiverse? Why couldn't God make a holographic universe? Why does that negate God? It doesn't.
It sure doesn't.
It sure doesn't.
And even the designer, it doesn't even mean that the designer of this hologram is God either. I mean, if you think about this, if you think about like the developer of the Sims game, he's God to the Sims, right?
Yeah.
But he's
God
got
made him. So
right, but
maybe God made us, our higher consciousness, and maybe our higher consciousness made these little avatars down here in matter.
Exactly.
So God made us indirectly through
sort of this
our higher
fractal
selves
of layers, you know, just from the macro to the micro. And, you know, who's to say that the designer of the Sims doesn't have a God, and that God isn't the top. He has a God, and he has a God, and it's like all of these nested, like the nested Russian dolls or whatever, you know, where you've got one inside of another. We can't be for sure that that's not even how it is, because we create these simulations under
cut anybody off from source. Then even if you take the little tiny doll inside, it's still related to the doll outside of it, because it's inside of it. So in a way, you can't cut anything off from God, no matter which direction or how far you go.
Right. And it's not even saying that the very top, the very outer doll in this example is going to interfere with any of them other ones. How do we know that this might just let things go on and see how they play out, or maybe only step in certain instances? We just don't know. You know?
And then when you say, okay, let's look at God in the Russian doll set, and the last one is God. Well, who made God? Then where did God come from? Did God create God? You know, this is where it gets really interesting, is when you wonder what created the God force that created everything.
That was one of my very first questions to my mom, and she said, well, when you get to heaven, you can ask him, honey.
Oh, you're so smart. When you get to ask him. Oh my God, that was a brilliant response.
I get that a lot, though. That wasn't good enough for me. That's why I've been on this lifelong journey of trying to find those answers. I'm like,
that's why you have
to wait till then?
Friends. Yeah, that's why you have the show, this whole channel.
Yeah, so it's always been that for me, asking those tough questions and trying to just figure it out. But now, kind of where I am at right now is I feel like I like Jesus's explanation with the story of the fishes in the water. It's the parable of the fishes is what it's called, and it's like the fish don't realize that God is the water to them, so they're swimming around in the water. All they know is the water. They're made up of the water. And everything in their life is of the water, but because they've never been out of the water, they don't realize what it's like without the water. So I think God is like that with us. We're all made up. It's God that makes us all animated right now and talking and gives us our breath of life and all that. So I see God more like that, more like just, I don't know, everything, you know?
I see God as everything too. I really love Native American, Indian, and Native Canadian Indian beliefs where God is in everything. There's nothing that isn't part.
That's why I like the word source for that, because then it sort of takes the idea of
male, female. It's like source is male, source is female.
Right, but source is the source. Where did that come from? Well, that's source. It's made up. That's the source of everything.
You see that little boy that asked his mom, well, who made source then? Did source come from nothing? Because nothing comes from nothing, supposedly.
Right.
But maybe if nothing is under enough pressure from something, it'll create something. So I don't know.
I think that's sort of the way we live, feeling like everything has to have a big beginning and end, you know?
Yes.
But you would think that time itself, outside of what we consider time, would be infinite.
Well, what if
it's not
time
infinite?
is not a spiral infinitely, but what if it's just one big circle? What if that's time? You never have a beginning of a circle, and you never have an end of a circle.
Yeah.
You'd have to be there at the beginning to know where the beginning was.
And you like David Wilcock, so he talks about those cycles that come around again.
Oh, I know.
Start seeing things repeating again.
Everything he says, but I really like him. I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, I dig his books a lot more than his lectures or his seminars and things like that. I still enjoy him, but he puts a lot of research into the books. That
I like his science in his books and wisdom teachings, the early days before he got into the secret space program. And I don't care if anybody loves this secret space program, that's absolutely fine. But it just changed his presentation of, I don't know, I just like him talking about science. He just did it so well. He still does it a little bit.
Yeah. No, I still enjoy him. I'm just like, I really like his books, though, because he gets into a lot of cool research in it, you know. But I always enjoy listening to him. In fact, watched the one you were just talking about earlier where he was talking
Questions and
about
answers.
where his camera stopped working and his
It
slides
didn't
stopped
stop working. He's like, what? My cameras aren't working? And he's fine. We could see him. Remember?
Yeah,
At least he didn't
but I
start
didn't watch the
swearing.
whole thing. Yeah, I think I watched, I don't know, 30 minutes of it and got distracted or something. But yeah.
He's a good guy. I
yeah.
met him. I paid to go to dinner with him, and then we got a really nice presentation from him. And then we got to mingle with him. I mean, Sherry, I should have snuck her in as, you know, I should have snuck her in to have dinner with her boyfriend. She loves David. He's
That's
married,
funny.
Sherry.
Yeah, I think she said something like she was liking him way before he got married or something.
Yeah.
So. I found him first. Well, he didn't know. So.
Yeah, you did when he was a skinny little geek, right?
Yeah.
When he was like his early days, just brilliant mind, and so young and so like greeny beanie.
And his, let's see, I first came across him when he was doing, I think he was on one of the Ancient Alien shows or something like that on like.
Oh, very young.
When I first discovered him, I'm like, oh, that's that guy that I remember from the Ancient Alien show. I think it was Ancient. It was one of
I'm
those
sure
shows
he was
like
on
that.
Ancient Aliens in the early days.
Yeah.
They had all the good guys on there, Graham Hancock, and I don't remember all their names.
I'd love to get Graham Hancock on, but
I stopped watching when they had David Podesta on, but so did everybody else. And now David Podesta's been booted off, so I guess we can go back and watch Ancient Aliens again.
Oh, that's.
But that was
right.
kind of creepy. Like, you know, why not have Hillary Clinton on or Trump on? I'd stop watching it if it was Trump or Clinton. I don't care which one.
Right.
You know, I don't want my Ancient Aliens, like, you know, muddied with politicians, dirty
Right.
politicians.
I'm with you on that one for sure. Yeah, so yeah, I didn't know he was even on there, and that's funny because the episode that we were just talking about with David, he was talking about having as many views as, or half as many as Hillary, was it?
I know that I do like a lot of his stuff, but I was like, oh, stop talking about that. And no, they took away all his views, didn't they? He had more views than Hillary Clinton, according to Google. And the next day, all gone. He lost like 800,000 views.
That's
I'm talking
weird,
hits on Google. Like if you put David Wilcock into Google, it'll tell you how many hits you get. Like we've got 1 million articles or whatever. Yeah. And then he had like double Hillary Clinton. And then the next day he had like half of Hillary Clinton. Google just removed all of his stuff.
What do you think's up with that?
I
think once you reach a certain level, they've got a man on you. They've got an actual person.
I don't really use Google. I use DuckDuckGo. I use Google for Hangouts when we talk. Otherwise, everything I do is on DuckDuckGo and Thunderbird. And what's the other good one? Firefox. So I try to avoid Google as much as possible because of their CIA affiliation.
Yeah. Cheryl's saying something I think is good. She says, I like David Wilcock, but he tends to be over dramatic and paranoid. I totally agree with that. I was thinking the same thing when he goes,
yeah.
Did all of Facebook shut down because of me? I don't know. You know, I'm like, I doubt it.
It does make you laugh though, because it's kind of cute. He's not very offensive when he does it, but it's kind of like done in a little boy way.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? Like he doesn't mean anything. He goes, everybody says I'm arrogant. Why do they think I'm arrogant? You know, and then he'll go, if you checked my name yesterday, I'd have more hits than Hillary Clinton, you know, so it's okay. It goes with the package.
Kind of goes with that, you know, once you've been attacked, I think it would be hard to stay out of the victim mentality about stuff. And that's where the paranoia comes in, you know what I mean? Because if you've known you've been attacked before and you've known, I mean, every time your computer would break, you'd wonder, is this a hacker getting
every
in
single
here?
time.
You'd have to, you know?
Our community does that a lot. If we glitch and we crash, they're like, they don't want us to hear this. And you're right, they don't want us to hear it. But some of that is from the geomagnetic storms.
Totally.
And
just like what we were talking about.
You know?
We could have totally thought it was Black Hawks or something flying over. And because, you know, I see them and stuff, and I can see
We got hit, both of us tonight, and we just laughed about the geomagnetic storms. We didn't go, oh boy, we're getting really popular with the bad guys, right?
Right. But it's kind of that whole victim mentality thing, I think. And I think it's helpful to move away from it because it can lead to paranoia.
Yeah. Yeah, and plus now that we know that this matrix, what they say, I can't
Sherry
see the
said,
chat.
"Are y'all talking bad about my boyfriend?"
We like your boyfriend. He's cute even when he's arrogant.
He's just a little paranoid, Sherry. That's all. He's got good reason to be.
He's got good reasons, doesn't he?
I
don't
I've
know.
often wondered about like even some of his guests. You know, man, it'd be like hard to leak that sort of stuff and not wonder if they're all always after you and stuff. You know, so
There's
I don't
one
really
big
blame
thing.
them.
Sherry, close your ears. I want to hear la 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 right now. Okay, you ready? Okay. I'll signal you when to take your fingers out of your ears. The one thing that I really don't agree with David Wilcock is that you only have to be 51% good to ascend to New Earth. You know, and I'm not saying you have to be 80% good or 90% good. I'm just saying there isn't a percentage. It's not okay to be 51% good and then be really horrible the other 49% of the time. I mean, that could include stealing and lying and rape and murder and everything. So I don't get that. And I didn't remember that from the Law of One, but he says it's from the Law of One. But I read the Law of One in the 1980s. They didn't say 51% good, did they?
I think it was more like it wasn't on. They kind of do make it sound like that, but you know, I think if you're sort of moving, if you're moving in the right direction, you would move beyond trying to look at it that way. I think. You know what I mean? It's not like you're just trying to breeze by. If you're trying to do that, then you haven't quite figured it out, I feel like. You know what I mean? It's like...
I mean, if they let everybody through who's 49% evil, it's going to be a really shitty New Earth. And I'm not sure I want to go there.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing to think about, though. You know, it's like, are they talking about the whole, once 51% of the people, or on an individual level, you have to reach that 51%. And I think they kind of addressed it in both ways.
Individual level. And he goes, don't worry, guys. You only have to be 51% good. So you're all going. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I want to be all inclusive. What I believe might be true, nobody likes. Like when I put this out in videos, I get a gazillion thumbs down. And then like 3 people go, yes, I'm with you on this. And that's the possibility that no one goes until all go. We might be so tied together as one organism with one brain, one subconscious hive mind, you know, that creates this Mandela effect, that we ain't going anywhere until we all go. And that really upsets people. But, you know, there's still a good possibility that that's true.
Another way of looking at the percentage, like we were talking about, is that you look at your entire life. So all of your deeds along your entire life, you're like, you know, putting it on the scale. Now, if it's 51% that way, then a lot of us need to be at 100% good to make up for all of the 100% bad we were when we were a teenager running around wild, thinking of ourselves only.
Oh, that's the Egyptian scales. Do you remember where they put the heart? And they put the heart on the scale with, you know, a ton of lots and lots of gold, and your heart had, I don't know how it wound up, but your heart was weighed at the point of death to see whether you were good and go into the good place or whether you were bad and go into the bad place.
Yeah, I don't know where they got the stats for that, but yeah, they do talk about it. I need to go back into the Law of One because I kind of just flew through it, and I did
Me
a
too.
bunch of videos.
I read like 5 or 6 or 7 books just right after. They're short, one after the other. But like everything, I like a lot of the Law of One, but I don't hold to all of it. I haven't found a single belief system that I can say I'm on board 100%. Even Dolores Cannon. I love most of her stuff, but I can't say I'm 100% on
I'm
board.
like that with everything. And then who was the lady that channeling Jane?
Oh my God, Seth. Jane Roberts.
The Seth material, yeah.
I was probably more on board with her stuff than I was with Dolores Cannon's. I was a lot more on board with Edgar Cayce, even though he's like very religious. He's a good Christian, but he's a true Christian. He's not a churchy Christian at all.
Right.
You know?
Oh, totally, yeah.
I was probably more on board with him than anybody who's come after, but I'm not sure of the people before. I've read Wattles. There's a guy named Wattles who led the New Thought movement of 1900.
I remember.
I've read all of Madame Blavatsky, not on board with all of her stuff. I've read a lot of Alice Bailey, on board with half of it.
Well,
I've
see,
read
there's some
Rudolf Steiner.
country contradictions, though, when you look. So you might like the Law of One and think it's all great. You might like the Seth material and think it's all great. But then there's contradictions around the story of Jesus, for instance, or
Yes.
other little things. And you're like, well, which way is it? And then you'll look at someone else you respect and it's a little bit different. And you're like, why am I getting three different versions from these?
Well, this is where I came up
yeah.
with my theory that probably is out there in your guys' mind, if that's a word, your guys'. And what I think is that all of that, no matter where it comes from, whether it comes from source, God, angels, is being filtered through a human mind at some point. And whatever human mind is filtering it, Dolores Cannon, Jane Roberts, Casey, David Wilcock, they add their own prejudices to it. They filter the information and then color it with their beliefs. So no matter who you listen to or who you read, you're never getting 100% pure information. Even if they got their eyes closed and they're a somnambulist, I'm also a somnambulist. I was regressed by the Edgar Cayce Foundation because I was in Texas. I was 24 years old, I think 23. I could drink. I remember we were drinking a lot of tequila, and I was on a summer break from college, and we all said we'd drink the worm, and none of us did. So. And I went to a hypnosis show, and he puts the lights up, there's probably 500 people in there. And he goes, okay, if somebody is out on your table, raise your hand. And I was there with like 12 people, and they're like, we got one. And there I was face down on the table, out cold, like Sherry would have been. And he goes, okay, thank you, everybody on the stage, go sit down. And there were 5 of us, and he brought 5 somnambulists up, and he did his magic hypnosis act with us because he knew that we would go, we'd really go along with it because we could go the deepest. And he did things like burn us, but not burn us, but nobody moved their hands or fingers when they're being burned. I think he did things with needles, but that'd be kind of gross. He did a lot of magic with us as well. And then he said, I'm with the Edgar Cayce Foundation. I'm doing a bit of research. Could I regress you? And I'm like, yeah, awesome. That would be cool. So I went in and I did the regression, and I got a couple of hits on like 3 or 4 different past lives, but not all of them were on Earth, which is interesting. And when he said, where the heck are you? I couldn't say with human voice where I was or human alphabets where I was. There are other places in the dimensions that are operating on entirely different communication systems. So they don't really necessarily have words. Anyway, that was really interesting. And then he did all these psychic tests, and he did telepathy, and he did all this stuff. And he had his notebook because this was like 1984. I'm thinking, like before running around with your little laptop, right? And he'd whip out his notes and he'd write it all down. And that was the end of it. I just got tested while I was under, and everything that he asked me to do, I could do. So he'd go, look at that sign over there. And across the room, 20 or 30 feet would be a sign. And then boom, I'd hit the table. So he could literally put me out by sitting 4 feet away from me, by having me look at an object 20 feet away. Then he would send his command to go under, because I was already under while he was doing this. He was waking me up, putting me under, waking me up, putting me under. He would send it to that object. The object would bounce it back to my head. He wouldn't say a word. I wouldn't look at him, and I'd be out.
So have you watched Darren Brown? He does that sort of thing too.
No. Who's Darren Brown? Is he a hypnotist?
He's from the UK, and he does all these weird mind tricks with people.
But they're not tricks. They're like, when you're hypnotized, all of your abilities, all your psychic abilities are raw. They're there for somebody to manipulate, because I don't know how to do this stuff.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. Have you seen the example where they'll have someone hypnotized, and then they'll have someone stand behind the person, or they'll have someone stand in between, and they'll show a watch with like an engraved inscription or something on it. It's
invisible.
And and the person can see through the person and read the inscription. How the heck do they do that?
That is remote viewing, because I've tried to remote view. I'm not very good at it. I can do a lot of out-of-body stuff because I started in my 20s, but I'm not a good remote viewer. But that's remote viewing. You're actually in the somnambulous state. So you're not really awake. You're operating at such a low level, or possibly a really high level. The gamma waves go quite high. So you can either be super, super low, like below delta, or above even gamma. And you can remote view through somebody.
Yeah, so they were just given the suggestion, for those who haven't seen it, they were given the suggestion that they would not see a person. Like the person just would be invisible to them.
And they're standing 3 feet in front of them.
And they're right in front of them, and then someone's holding something behind the person.
Yeah, they like give them here, give them like a blue, these are moonstones, so they're gray, they're blue-gray. Right. And then they go hold this, and then they bring the person out, right? Stand in front of them and go, put them under and say, what is that person? How'd they do it? Did they say, what are they holding in their hands? And they just
they said, can you read the inscription on that watch? And the one I watched, it was like one of those old style pocket watches, you know.
I think they go something like, see, Shane, he's standing in front of you. Shane is now invisible, but there's an object in his hands behind his back. Tell us what object that is. Can you see the object? Because it didn't turn invisible with Shane. And then they go, it's a watch. And then they go, well, what's the inscription on the watch? And then the person would read it.
Which is impossible, because not only was it inside their closed hand, but it was behind their back, so they had to see through their hand, through their body, to read the inscription on it. So I guess remote viewing makes the most sense.
Well, I don't know, because I never saw that, but Paulo put that. He put the whole paragraph on that in our book. That's how I know it, because we've got the whole thing basically ready to go now. So that's where I got it from, was from Spiritwalker.
But see, that actually takes us back to the whole holographic thing, you know?
Yeah,
that person was sort of hacked out of their reality, and all they saw was the watch there. You know, that makes sense to me too. You know?
And that could explain remote viewing.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, then you can see something going on in Russia. You can see something going on the moon in that holographic. And the other thing that he would do is he would look at me and I'd look at him, right? And then he'd put his finger forward and just touch my third eye, and I'd go out. No words were spoken. So it was pretty interesting, because it made me I was an early believer that all humans have psychic gifts. My mom raised me that way, so he had a good subject because I was already a believer.
Yeah, that's how I was too. I remember trying to move stuff with my mind and trying to do all sorts of psychic things because I just felt like it could be done. But you know, after years of being told you're not going to do that, it's not real, and that's evil, and all of this, you just finally give up trying, you know.
So when all of our, I don't think that the ruling elite of humanity currently wants all of our gifts to come online, because then they wouldn't be able to control us in a way that would be most beneficial to them for their monetary gain, their houses, their yachts,
see through their lies. It's already happening without those gifts.
But I think all those gifts are going to come online. I don't think 10% of humanity can stop evolution of 90% of humanity gaining their natural God-given gifts.
And saying it's evil is like saying that sight or sound or hearing, you know, is evil.
Well, that's why they say it's evil. They say, you know, if you do divination, if you do psychic, anything, it's evil, it's from Satan. Well, they do that, but then the human doing it has to go, well, wait a minute, I got these gifts from God. The gifts are from God. How could they be evil? How could they be
use them?
Yeah.
It's like anything else. You can use a gun for, you know, go and killing people
hunting
or
and
something,
go
or you could
go
target shooting or whatever. Yeah. The internet, the TV, any of that stuff can be used one of two ways. There's always a flip side to the coin, you know. So
I don't really see the alien intervention, though, that people say there are no evil human beings. There are only evil reptilians or archons pulling the strings of stupid humans. I think what we've got down here is ours, and I think we're very, very capable of being very, very good or being very, very bad. I think we own both sides of it. And then if you own it, you can clean it up. You can cure it. Because doctors say if you can't find out what the disease is, you can't cure it. Alcoholics say if I don't admit I'm an alcoholic, then I can't stop being one. The first step is always acknowledging. So my name is Eileen, and I would like to say that the baddies on this planet are humans. That is my testimony tonight.
And that's something that everyone can agree with. I mean, there might be more going on than that. It doesn't really matter, because the evil we have to deal with comes from another human being.
They're human anyway.
Yeah.
Regardless of who's pulling their strings, you know, they're going along with it.
That's exactly right.
I think they try to get us to think that a higher power is behind it so that we do nothing. We think, oh, what are you going to do? You know, demons are behind that. Reptilians are behind that. Then really you can't do anything because the creature behind it is much more powerful than you. I don't think they want you to know that just very, very smart and very tricky humans are doing this, because then you think, well, hang on a minute. If they can do it, I can do it. Which
the
means,
Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The man behind the curtain and all that. And it's the same thing, I think, with the waiting for a savior. You know, if you're waiting for a savior to come save you, then you're not going to take any action to do anything. You're going to kind of sit back.
Well, you are the savior. I loved all that old stuff. Did you watch all that, The Hero's Journey? Very Jungian, but it was presented by, oh my God, it was such a popular series. You were too young for it. Somebody's going to know it in the chat. It was on
let
TV.
us know, because that sounds awesome.
Book. What was it called?
Based on Carl Jung's work?
Well, it was all about myths. It was about all the myths the human mind has created. And the most important thing in all myth for thousands of years is the hero's journey. David Campbell is his name. I don't think he's alive anymore. Joseph Campbell?
Well, I've looked all into the hero's journey, so I know all about it, because I realized that's part of the whole Dark Night of the Soul. And I was like,
I think it was from the 70s, and public television did a whole series on it. It was Joseph Campbell. Yeah, Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, Joseph Campbell. Pretty dark set.
And it was very important to understand that embedded in your soul.
Smart people in here.
Yeah, because we're all like the same age. We're older than you, a lot of us. Like 10 years, I don't know, 15. But that was from the 70s. That was when Carl Sagan was on. And then you had Joseph Campbell on. And we had this great era, 10 years of phenomenal television programming. They just don't do that anymore. You know, that was early days. And
but they actually base a lot of the great movies, like from Rocky to any of them, they're sort of based on that hero's journey thing.
Yeah, even if you're a woman, you're on the hero's journey. Yeah. And it says that every time we see a movie or read a book, we put ourselves in the hero's role. We see ourselves doing whatever we read the hero is doing. And our subconscious mind is doing that when we watch a movie. So when you're watching Rocky, you are Rocky. It doesn't matter what color you are, you know, what sex you are, how old you are. You become that character for those 2 hours.
Yeah, totally.
So the hero's journey is really, really important. Therefore, it's important for us to be our own saviors, to step up to the plate and take responsibility for the planet. And if something's wrong, fix it, you know?
Yeah, and it was really like, you know, even like I've talked about it before, how like I had this best friend that we would talk about things and figure things out together, and then all of a sudden, you know, he was no longer there to sort of discuss the Mandela effect and all that. And that's usually what happens, like, you know, with Rocky, the old guy that would help him through the fight, you know, he dies and he's like sort of left alone. But this thing happens over and over again on this hero's journey. Whoever the sidekick is gone, and then you go to this dark period where you're alone.
In movies, don't they? You're always sorry for the sidekick, you know. It's like, oh, you're not gonna have a good time in this movie,
right? And then it looks like, you know, it's all's lost, and then he reemerges and comes, you know. So this whole thing has been like, I was just blown away that even in the Jesus story, you know what I mean? Like all of his disciples leave him and all that.
Requires a challenge, because if you did the Rocky movie from beginning to end without any challenges, his trainer didn't die. They were best friends until the end of the movie. And Rocky never lost a fight. And everybody supported him. And you just watch this for two hours. Unfortunately, modern current humans would walk away feeling very dissatisfied. They need him to face some serious challenges, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's why there is the philosophy. I think it's Hopi that says, the path is smooth. Why do you throw stones before you? So the point of that is that life is easy, but we make it difficult. We make it difficult.
But we enjoy it more like that. Even though people, you know, you're like, no, I want it easy. No, you'd get bored easy. I think we like the challenge on a deeper level.
I think you're right. I'm convinced, though, that I want a peaceful world that has clean water and food and housing for everybody. you know? And then what would happen if that happened? I would hope to God that I would go, yay, this is a great place to stay, because those are my goals. I want those things to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And I think they can happen. There must be other ways to keep yourself interested that don't have to do with warfare, you know?
Oh, I totally agree. I think that the next level we're trying to get to, I mean, while a lot of people think it's going to be like super easy and like, you know, no challenges, I think it's going to be a whole new set of challenges.
Yes.
Maybe we have to work on our creative abilities on a different level. And maybe, you know, there's just no telling what it is, but I'm sure it's not going to be empty of any kind of challenges. They're just going to be different, like a different level in the game.
People describe New Earth as heaven. I'm like, that sounds like heaven, you know, because they're like, you just go there and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to work. You just have everything that you need. And I'm like, that really sounds like heaven to me. Doesn't it?
Yeah, but a billion years of that. And
heaven.
you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to go back into a difficult Earth again and live a few lives, you know? Don't you think it's like that?
I do, actually. I do. Now, ever since we talked about Mario Brothers being the training for our children to understand how life in matter works, I just feel like Mario, you know, just jumping on those mushrooms' heads all the time, trying not to get killed.
Yeah, totally.
And then boom, if you get it wrong, new life, start over, right back in the level you were in, you know?
I totally agree. And I think Alan Watts had it right. We probably did it a million times knowing what was going on and said, you know what, the challenge would be is to make it through and forget who you are, you know? And
was it you or my nephew? He's quite brilliant, who said, well, the other possibility is this has all been done. And now, because all time happens at once, boom, it's done. That's it. Past, it's all done. You decided to come in and experience it in a linear fashion. So this is just the re-experience of what you've already been through. And you're going step by step by step, like watching a movie over.
It's like building a roller coaster and having it all built and then say, okay, let's get on and ride it now. You know what I mean?
Or was it you or him also? Yes, like the roller coaster, who said, you have to go through this until you get it right. So you keep resetting but then who would decide right from wrong? I feel like we're the master. Okay, Spiritwalker said this. So many people, everybody's so smart. He said you can have free will contained within destiny. And you and I were talking about that too. It's like you go into the game and you don't have to pick up a weapon, but you can. That's your free will. But guess what? The programmer only gave you 6 choices. It's not. So that would be an example of predestiny and free will at the same time. So you have the free will to take it or not, but what's available is predestined because the programmer put in what you can and can't have.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that make your own story, make your own choices books where you turn to this page if you want to do this or that. And I think the Law of One kind of gets into this when it talks about how you've got a set thing that you're trying to accomplish, right? And if you get off track, then you have catalysts come along that sort of nudge you back on track again. And if you don't take the nudging, or you get pushed the wrong way, then something bigger and something bigger and something bigger comes.
Until you
finally get back on track. But if you've still got the free will, it's just you're getting nudged constantly. So
well, what if the nudger is us, our higher selves?
Yeah,
are directing these little avatars.
I think we set up those catalysts on the way, you know. So
but then
try not to be too hard-headed.
They're like, no, I wouldn't have picked this and I wouldn't have picked that. You know, when things get really tough, and they go, I wouldn't do that to myself. That's when it gets hard. That's when faith is tested.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of people leave God at that time and go, well, God couldn't do this to me, so therefore there is no God. And then you just answer that maybe God made you, but the rest is up to you. You know, maybe God loves you and maybe God made you and you have eternal life, but the rest in between of forever is up to you. It's in your hands.
And each individual person is us. I mean, we're just playing it out as each individual person. What are we at now? 9 billion or? I don't know. I think that number's changed.
I stopped looking after 7 billion.
See, I thought we were at 6 going to 7 or something, but I heard that who knows. But, you know, it's if you think about it, like playing it out as each person from each perspective, you know. And if you have eternity, that seems crazy, but if you have eternity, you have plenty of time to do it, you know.
Yeah, if you have eternity, then if people knew that, they might get lazy. They might go, oh, stuff it. I'm not going to try this lifetime. I'm just going to sit back because I know I got another one coming. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that's a reason why we don't know yet for sure that we have multiple lifetimes.
Yeah. Did we have any requests for this evening?
I didn't look, you guys. I had a busy day. I did not look on the computer to see if any requests came through. But I do have an idea for a really unusual.
Yeah.
You know, I'm taking this master class, Power of 8, but it's not called that. It's Lynne McTaggart's Master Intention class for 2019. It's all based on the Power of 8, though, on what we're doing. She deals with a lot more silence than we do. Like we're working our way up from 3 minutes to 5 minutes to 10 minutes of silence. But she doesn't really power people up. She says, take 3 deep breaths, breathe in and out of your heart. Think of doing something you love doing. And now the intention is X. And then silent for 10 minutes. So we're using bits of her powering up, and we've added our own. And we're doing a meditation intention instead, which is a spoken word one, right? Instead of just silence. So I could add more silence. I think I might try tonight. But what I wanted to try tonight, if you guys are willing, is we will do a manifestation meditation. So it'll be a quiet one where you're working with your mind instead of your voice. But there's going to be some really cool images that you can draw up in your mind that you'll be guided to step into your desires, your dreams, your hopes, your wishes. And you'll actually get to step into that and see what that feels like. And see if you can hold that feeling and step into it if it's really important to you, like once a day. Try to tune into that. So if we have
some kind of idea, like one of the callers the other night said last night said they really wanted to work with kids and do something like that. So someone like that would imagine playing out what exactly they're wanting to do, what would be their dream thing to do.
And it's a meditation, so I'll guide you through each step of that until you're actually stepping into. And we're going to use the television as a mechanism, because you know how we like to say it's like our consciousness is like a radio where the receivers, and we're just tuning into different channels and different stations, right? We're going to do the same with a television. And you know how now, my God, when you get that channel changer in your hand, there's like, is there a limit to the channels? Or there's like 400 different channels on some of these places. I use Roku, so I'm a bit limited. I've only got a few apps now. Still got like 20 choices, right?
Oh yeah, I got more than I could ever need because I'm usually on YouTube.
Some have hundreds. So let's give it a go, and if you guys like it, we'll do it again sometime. And if you don't, you can say so nicely, and we won't do it again.
But it's individualized. I like that. So.
Yeah, I'm going to individualize it. I'm not going to say what you're doing. You're going to fill in all the blanks yourself.
That's perfect.
I haven't done this one before, so I hope it goes well. We'll see. Okay. I have to.
You're so good at this because I would have to talk, I'm so glad you're doing this because
I love it. I love it. I love doing meditations. So thank you. Thank you for saying that and letting me wing it.
No, you're good at winging it. I'd have to rehearse. I'd have to have it in writing. I'd have to, I don't know.
I gave it thought today. So it's something I'm winging that I've probably given a good hour or two of my concentration to, of how I'd like it to go. So I'm going to put my mic closer, and I'm just going to take off. There you go. And I'm going to have a little bit of water. If you guys have water, have it now. And then kind of scooch around where you are and get really, really comfy. And close your eyes if you like. Okay. And we're going to start out. We're going to do the regular powering up. And we're going to take a nice deep breath in. Very relaxing, very deep. And exhale out. And then take in a nice deep breath again and hold it for a moment. And this time exhale out any tension anywhere in your body. And finally, take a nice deep breath in. Let your tummy extend as you fill the bottom of your lungs. and exhale out any stress of the day or the week. And now we're going to start breathing in through our heart center and out of our heart center. And we're going to continue to breathe in through our heart at a pace that suits you. So you can go slower than my words, or you can go faster than my words. Just get into a really relaxed, comfortable, rhythmic heart breath in and heart breath out. And go ahead and add a color to the in-breath coming from God, from Source, and exhale that color out again, any color that you like. And as you continue to breathe in that beautiful color, imagine that it's filling your body from the top of your head to the tips of your fingers, to the tips of your toes. Breathing in a healing, clear, clean color. Exhaling out that color. And if you like now, you can just allow that color to surround you like a bubble or like an egg or like a little light cocoon. And that color will protect you while you're meditating. And now we're going to shoot a grounding cord down from our root chakra at the base of our spine. You can make it any color, but people usually use gold or silver or red. And shoot that down through the floorboards, through the top of the earth, the grass, the mud, the rocks, down further, through all the different layers of the earth. Let it go down until it hits the center of the earth, where it spreads out in all directions like the roots of a tree. And now you are firmly grounded. And the last thing we need to do is to think that we're doing something that we love. Imagine it, see it, hear it, taste it, smell it. Just imagine doing something that you absolutely love doing. And when you've got those good feelings going and you're breathing in and out of your heart and the color is surrounding you, healing you, protecting you, I want you to imagine that there is a very large television screen in front of you. In fact, that's all that is in front of you right now. There's no furniture, there's no windows, no lights, just a huge television screen. And in your hand is a remote controller for that screen. So go ahead and turn it on now. And all you see is blue sky and green grass. Just a beautiful, lovely, sunny day somewhere on our beautiful planet Earth, or plain Earth, if that's how you see it. And now you realize that you have a button on that remote controller that can tune into different channels. So go ahead and start clicking the different channels. The good thing about this television screen and this remote controller is that only good things are shown on it. Never anything negative, never anything scary, and never anything sad. It only moves from good scene to happy scene to well scene to wholesome scene to joyful scene to peaceful scene to relaxed scene. And you can click into different channels endlessly, almost infinitely. But don't worry about the amount of channels that you can tune into, because now you're going to pick and choose which channel to go to. Because what is actually operating the remote in your hand is your heart energy. We're going to move it from your mind, where you think you're picking channels based on what you like, and we're going to let your heart energy run down the arm into the hand, straight into the remote controller. And now, as you're picking and choosing different channels, you get to pick them based on what you love, based on what you enjoy doing, based on what you appreciate, and based on what you have gratitude for. So if there are certain places you like to go, just to be in nature, go ahead and click that now. The information is coming from your heart into your remote controller and onto the screen in front of you. Just look at the place you love to go when you want to be in nature. Is it green and grassy? Is it a seafront? Are there waves crashing on the beach gently? Is it a forest? Are there caves? Are there rocks that you have to somehow climb over? Is it icy? Is it cold? Do you need skis to get down a mountainside? Just imagine now you're looking at a scene in nature that you love to be in, just to relax, just to feel comfortable and peaceful. And now you're going to use your remote controller and you're going to click into a scene of something that you absolutely love doing. And it doesn't matter whether it's playing with children, gardening, helping people fix their wounds or taking care of them, cutting hair, doing nails, delivering mail, picking up garbage that's been left behind by other people. It's absolutely up to you. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's something that you enjoy doing more than everything else that you usually do. And you've clicked into that scene now. And just kind of enjoy it. Just kind of absorb the information that you're looking at. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Is there a smell in the air? What does it feel like? How does that make you feel when you're watching that scene? And finally, we're going to do this one more time tonight. I want you to click into a scene that's empty, because that scene is your deepest desire. That scene holds your dreams. It holds something that you want so much that you're almost afraid to look at it because you want it so much. And there's nothing there because you have to put into that scene from your heart, down your arm, through the remote control, and onto the screen in front of you. You have to fill that scene and that screen with your desire. Start to do that now. What does it look like? Who's there? What are the activities? What's being done? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Completely create that scene like a director would, like an art director would. And fill it with people. If there's people in there of what your deepest desires are, go ahead and put them in there now. And now is the best part of all. Once you've fully constructed the scene on the screen of what you deeply desire, it could be a healing, it could be a new home, it could be a new job, it could be a new partnership. There's no limits to what that screen is holding right now. You're going to stand up in your mind and you're going to put the remote control down on the chair that you were sitting on. And you're going to take 3 steps forward into the screen. Now you are inside the image that you just created. It's all around you. It's 360 degrees now. You can look to the left, you can look up, you can look down, look to the right. You can even look behind you. Now, what does it feel like? Being in the scene that shows your deepest desires of what you wish to achieve here, now. What does it look like? What are the colors? What does it sound like? What are the activities? What are people doing? Or what are animals doing? What are you doing? What does it sound like? And most importantly, now that you're in that scene that you created, what does it feel like? And I'm just going to give you a few quiet moments to explore it because it's an entire world now in 3D. Okay, and when you're ready, we're going to let that grounding cord go back down into the center of the earth. And we're going to start to move around and stretch. But we're going to keep that information with us. It's now embedded into our thoughts and our feelings, into our vision, our hearing, our sensing, our touching, our smelling. We now know what it feels like to be doing what we most desire to either manifest, intend, or achieve in this lifetime. And you can revisit that scene anytime you like, simply by closing your eyes and imagining that you're tuning on that channel on that huge screen and stepping into it. So start to move around, move your arms, your ankles, stretch your neck, and come back.
All right.
I wasn't sure I was going to come back. Remember when we tested it out earlier and I didn't come back? It's like my camera wouldn't turn on.
Well, that worked, though. That was cool. Jane had trouble visualizing. You know what? I had a little more trouble visualizing than usual, and I think it's something to do with the energies. Because when I was out in nature, I don't know. I think we're kind of at this point now where there's the shift that we're dealing with, this balancing with the yeah. So who was it that was saying? I think it was T. Taylor saying that after the 25th that Mercury's not in retrograde anymore. So that might be the same thing. You just never know how it's, how we affect it.
This was using more of Lynne's silence.
Yeah.
And I didn't guide you into the scene. All of our other meditations, you have a voice as you're relaxing that says, imagine water. The water is clear. Imagine children drinking it, so that you don't really have to imagine anything. You just have to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, whatever you imagined could be totally different from the other person. There was no description of what that scene entailed. It was completely up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody liked it. Ronnie's saying that it was fun. She imagined being herself right here where she is.
That's good.
Yay. Laugh out
That's
loud.
awesome.
Yeah. And,
I do that too. I usually imagine myself with my daughter, with my dogs. I'm near a beach anyway, doing what I'm doing. But other people, I'm going to be 58. Other people might want a new career or a new job or a new partner. So whatever they want.
Oh, we lost you for a split second. Okay, you're back.
I lost you too. Or if somebody is experiencing a health difficulty, they could have used that screen, that blank screen, to actually imagine what they'd be doing without that difficulty. How would it change their lifestyle? Maybe they go play golf or go swimming again or something like that. I don't know.
It was easier for me to go to where I normally go in meditation, and just, a peaceful, loving world, and where everything's beautiful. And so I don't know. I can't really think I'm already doing sort of what I love to do. So that's like my next step that I'm, and I always meditate on that and feel the blissfulness of that. But yeah, it was just a little bit more difficult to do it. You know what I mean?
You've got a blank screen and silence.
Yeah.
And now you're like, that kind of brings you out of your right brain, which is connected to infinite intelligence, and makes you go into the left brain, which is analytical, which is, what do I want? And now you're populating it. You're putting people in there, left brain. You're doing an activity in there, left brain. So yeah, it is a different kind of meditation than anything we've ever done before. But if somebody really wants to manifest, say, a new job somewhere, they can just close their eyes, sit down in front of a blank screen, and fill that screen with what they want, and then they can step into it. And now it's 360. It's all around you.
And that's something they can continue to do, like you were saying at the end
every
of it.
day.
But yeah, to meditate on that. And I think that's a key point in our whole manifestation process that we're learning. So I
I have
liked
a
it. I think
feeling
it's
though our
cool.
community doesn't really need it very much. I know that, except for maybe fixing a few creaky knees and
Mm-hmm.
joints, because we're at a stage in our life, many of us, where we've achieved it. We've done it.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need that blank screen, except for maybe a more beautiful, peaceful world, a cleaner world, a happier world.
Or using it for a loved one that maybe they're dealing with addiction or
Yeah.
something like that, and you're
Or
visualizing them at their
arthritis or something
potential.
like that. You imagine your
Yeah.
loved one standing up and walking and doing a jig,
Right.
doing something that they can't do at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it was different, but different is good. So,
Different is good. But in many ways, I think I was thinking the same thing, because I've literally got what I wanted. I've got what I've always dreamed of. It's here, it's now. And that's what Ronnie was saying. She's got, that's what you're saying you've got. And that's probably what Jane meant. Like, what am I going to visualize? Because I've got it. I've done it. I'm not sure what to put in the screen.
yeah, it was cool. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So, how much longer on the? I know you guys meet up or whatever. Still, is it a full year that
It's
you're
a
doing?
full year. So I'm just completing my taxes now. And then I got everything from Paulo. So I did my extra chapters. The book's ready to go to you for illustrations and
Mm-hmm.
layout, design, and cover by April 1st. We're right on target for April 1st because we gave ourselves an extra month to
Mm-hmm.
add the new material.
I
So
see.
that's the big thing now, is getting that book out in April. How cool is that? And then marketing it online.
Yeah, we can actually say to be in stores on April 1st and say April Fools.
Sometime in April. I can
Yeah,
say
we're
for
real close
definitely
though.
sure before May, in April, it'll be available on Amazon and Kindle. But, our community, you guys know all this stuff anyway. You might find it useful to give to a family member or a friend who doesn't believe you. You can go, here, read this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I thought of it, as a great wake up tool. You know.
Yeah. So that you don't have to try to argue with loved ones all the time. You can just say, well, here's a really good authoritative book, and I know the authors.
Yeah, totally. And I need to get with you on that because I don't know if I've told you, but my brother, who I'd been trying to wake up this whole time, woke up from the headband on
No.
Richard Simmons, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's, out of all the things that I've sent him, that's the one thing he's like, no, I always know he's always worn a headband. My brother, he's 9 years older than me. He was born in '65, so he would, wear the sweatbands or whatever on his head all through
Hmm.
the '80s. He was real big into basketball and he loved to wear it or whatever. So he knew for sure he wore one. I'm like, you go find a picture of him wearing one on the internet and let me know.
And send it to me, because that would be great
Yeah. So
residue.
so
Great
30
residue.
year, 30 minutes later, he goes, "There's got to be a way to make more money than just bets in a bar or something like that." He's already trying to figure out how to make money off of.
Oh my
So, but he
God. And
saw it. You know what I mean? He's totally taking this real 3D approach to it. I'm like, be careful betting because you can go and look and it can flip flop on you and you'll be out $20. So
yeah, because tomorrow he might
you never
suddenly
know.
have a headband again. Yeah. Well, maybe that will spur him on to looking into other Mandela effects. Mine today for Auntie Jane in Hastings, England. She's 10 years older than me. So maybe not quite that much. Maybe she's 65. Is Mirror Mirror. She said, I didn't really get the Mandela effect. And I said, well, it's simple, like mirror, mirror. And she goes, you mean nobody ever said that? And I said, no, nobody said that. That was never spoken by the mirror in Snow White in the books or the movie. And she's like, that's not right. That's not on. It's mirror, mirror. So for her today, mirror, mirror was the big thing. And she's trying to explain this to other people. And they're like, what are you talking about that matter is changing? Like, where? Show me. And they'll point at a chair, right? They're like, that chair hasn't changed.
So that being said, I don't know if we should throw in Richard Simmons and maybe I can add
Yeah.
that another little paragraph. That
I
and
think that would be great.
the SMQAI, he brought up the whole.
Ed McMahon.
Yeah, I think that's a big one because
That's a very big.
who didn't think about him showing up at their door and imagining what it would be like, you know, for
We
him
still
to show
got
up with
Johnny
this big check,
Carson
you know.
showing up with David Letterman. It's still on YouTube going, we're taking your check back. And then he whips out some kind of a big publisher, not American Family, American Publishers Clearinghouse. That was the
Right.
one, wasn't it?
Yeah. But supposedly, you know, the Publishers Clearinghouse was the only one I even knew of. We'd get the letters, had
Yeah,
the
I don't know
man's
about
face on it.
American
And,
Family Publishers. I really don't. I don't remember them.
yeah, that's crazy.
But for other people, it really was Star Wars and Berenstein Bears. I'm talking like 2012, 2013, 2014. So it's kind of like the Mandela effect poster child keeps changing. Like in 5 years, it might be something else that's really big.
But that's got to get a lot of people. I mean, out of all the things I presented to my brother, for that to be the one that it finally clicks in his head.
That's the one.
Yeah. And there's plenty of residue because everybody's imitating him with a headband, but like he never wore one. So it's like, and I don't know if I mentioned this before in the air, but one of the things that, like, I remember the basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wearing one as well, like before he like started wearing it. So I started wondering if is it a Richard Simmons thing or is it a headband thing?
No, it was Richard Simmons doing these silly little dances for his exercises in this headband that made his hair go poof and
right.
poof. You know,
now his head looks so big because I've never seen his forehead, so it looks so big now.
What's it called? He's got a massive afro.
Yeah.
And when you headband it, you really get those two sections.
Yeah.
And then
the same way with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar too, but like they've disappeared
that
for
was
him
later.
too.
I think the sports people copied Richard Simmons. That's my guess.
Right.
I could be wrong.
But it could be a headband thing. That's all I'm saying. So if you remember someone who wore one all the time, at least at some point, check out that person and see if it's a headband thing. I think it might be a headband thing rather than a Richard Simmons thing.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Very cool, though.
Yeah, very cool. Which everybody has to have their own trigger. I'm glad your brother's been triggered. I'm glad it's happened.
He hasn't called me back since then, though. So
no, because he's freaking out and pulling his hair out going, no, my reality has ended. Sorry, I got someone at the...
Oh, no problem. Well, lots of love and light. Thank you so much, Ronnie. I appreciate you. So much love to all of you guys in the chat. And we'll be back Monday. Sherry. Yes, we'll be back Monday with Sherry. And you guys have
a
great weekend for the rest of your weekend. You too. Thank you for being here, Eileen, as always.
Thank you, Shane. That was perfect timing with the door, really. I'm glad it was then and not like 10 minutes ago, like going television screen. Roof, 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 roof.
You're like, I see dogs on my screen.
I see dogs on my screen.
Well, we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Love you guys. Bye. Peace.
If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.